We have a late bulletin. Here is a flash.
President Roosevelt passed away this afternoon
died at Warm Springs, Georgia, this afternoon at his little white pine cottage atop
The
Pine
death
Mountain.
of Franklin D. Roosevelt in his 63rd year at his home in Warm
at the
Springs,
home,
Georgia.
which was affectionately called the Little White House. They said it beyond a doubt it was cerebral
The
hemorrhage.
grieved Allied world is pouring out its sympathy.
The president's death came without warning. He had been in Warm Springs.
4:35 p.m. Eastern Wartime, the president died without pain, and at 5:45 p.m. Eastern Wartime in Washington, former Press Secretary Steve Early
announced the earth-shaking news. The president was having his portrait painted at the time, a portrait as yet unfinished.
This was our friend that we had lost. We had lost our very best friend.
I couldn't hardly believe it. I wanted to believe I was only dreaming.
People believed in him. They looked up to him. He gave them hope.
I realized that when he died, we had lost one of the best friends we had, 'cause I saw so much that he did for the poor folks.
Since 1933, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt had led the American people out of the Great Depression, into the violence and turmoil of World War II, and through some of the greatest social changes this nation had ever experienced.
He was a wonderful man. He did a lot for the poor people and the people who needed help in this country.
He was the only president I ever knew.
At the beginning of his presidency, Franklin Roosevelt faced a crisis of massive proportions. More than 13 million people were unemployed. Thousands of banks had failed. Factories stood silent. Farmers were losing their lands at an unprecedented rate. Roosevelt understood that getting the country back on its feet required dramatic action. In his first 100 days in office, he herded dozens of new programs and policies through Congress. These measures helped stabilize the banking industry, spur agricultural recovery, and provide millions of jobs for workers around the country.
I pledge myself to a new deal for the American people.
The Civilian Conservation Corps, the Works Progress Administration, the National Recovery Administration, the Public Works Administration. Roosevelt's New Deal brought hope to millions. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt was sworn in as president on March 4, 1933, no one could have predicted the legacy of economic and social programs he would leave this country. Born into wealth and influence, he grew up on his family's estate in Hyde Park, New York. A child of privilege, Franklin Roosevelt became a man of the people, a great democratic leader, admired by millions, but with more than a few enemies. Strong and athletic, but stricken in the prime of life by a disease that paralyzed him from the waist down. During the first half of the 20th century, polio struck suddenly and indiscriminately, crippling and killing, inflicting its suffering on young and old alike. This was a time of great fear when polio epidemics took a terrible toll. In 1924, when Franklin Roosevelt came to Warm Springs, Georgia, he was seeking a cure for the polio that had attacked him 3 years earlier. Already well known as a politician and wealthy businessman, Roosevelt brought money and attention to this little community in middle Georgia. During the Roosevelt years, Warm Springs changed dramatically, and Roosevelt himself was responsible for many of those changes. For decades, Warm Springs had been a summer retreat, a popular vacation spot. Roosevelt oversaw its transformation from a resort into a place where polio patients could recuperate. Here they could find relief in the 88-degree water that flowed year-round into specially designed pools. For those whose arms and legs were weakened or paralyzed by polio, movement was easier in the warm, buoyant water.
The pool down at the bottom of the hill was where all the patients had to go for their treatments. I saw President Roosevelt at the pool several times. He got in there and played volleyball and basketball with the kids and just carried on like you never knew he was the President of the United States. You know, he loved children.
I'd be in the play pools with a bunch of kids, and he'd get in there with us. We'd try to drown him, try to dunk him.
Roosevelt loved Warm Springs, and for 21 years, until his death in 1945, he came here as often as possible to relax and exercise in the soothing spring waters.
He loved it here. He came down 41 times altogether.
During his visits, Roosevelt would take to the back roads, driving himself in a car that was specially equipped with hand controls he had designed.
Many a family owed their first acquaintance with Franklin D. Roosevelt to the fact that he had driven to their dooryard for a friendly chat. He knew them. He knew their troubles and problems as well as their joys.
My friends and neighbors, 11 years ago, I came to live at Warm Springs for the first time. I do not need to tell you that I am happy to be in Georgia, nor do I need to tell you that I am proud of Georgia.
Warm Springs was a farming community, and like so many other communities during the Great Depression, it was struggling to survive.
He was very much interested in farming, not to try to make any money, but he was trying to get some information in his mind about the terrible plight of the farmers during the Depression we were in.
By the 1930s, in the midst of the Great Depression, the hard business of scratching an existence from the land was getting even harder. For the farmer and his family, days filled with endless tasks began long before dawn and ended in exhaustion well after dark. It was a desperate time when even the children were forced to work on the farm. Many of them never had the opportunity to go to school, and their lack of education trapped them in a cycle of poverty. For an aristocrat from Hyde Park, New York, this was a whole new world.
Him associating with the class of folks he did changed him. These were common people. Nobody had electric lights, and only a few had phones. He saw people who needed to be brought into the 20th century.
In the 1930s, only 1/10 of rural Americans had electricity, and those who did paid dearly for it. At Warm Springs, Roosevelt was shocked when he received his first electric bill. The charges here were 4 times higher than he paid at his family's home in Hyde Park, New York. This spurred his interest in finding a way to provide electricity to farm homes at affordable rates. In 1935, he expanded the New Deal by creating the Rural Electrification Administration. Seeing firsthand the struggles of his neighbors who couldn't afford electricity gave him a new understanding of the hardships faced by millions of Americans. Warm Springs changed the way Roosevelt looked at the world. But the world itself was changing. As Hitler's armies marched across Europe, country after country toppled in the face of Nazi power. Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, France. In 1941, When the Japanese bombed the American military base at Pearl Harbor, the United States could no longer avoid war.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
Through the darkest days of World War II, Roosevelt led the nation, inspiring and motivating the American people with his confidence and his determination that the Allies would prevail. But he never realized his dreams of peace. On April 12, 1945, only weeks before the Germans surrendered, the president died at Warm Springs, Georgia.
I couldn't hardly believe it.
This was our friend that we had lost.
He was the only president I ever knew.
I wanted to believe I was only dreaming.
We had lost our very best friend.
People looked up to him, and he gave them hope.
For 12 tumultuous years, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had been President of the United States. Champion of the poor and underprivileged, a man whose personal courage inspired a generation, he left behind a vision for America, a boundless hope for the country's future. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow, he said, will be our doubts of today. When he left Warm Springs for the last time on that April afternoon in 1945, there was no doubt this country had lost one of its greatest leaders.